At 15, I married Marquise Alistair as his second wife. My mother told me that if I treated people with sincerity, I would earn sincerity in return. However, Alistair secretly dosed my food with mercury. He was afraid that if I had my own children, I would no longer be able to wholeheartedly care for the 2 children his first wife had borne him. It wasn't until he was on his deathbed that he clasped my hand in repentance. "I am so sorry. If there is a next life, I will not be so wary of you." After his death, my stepson drove me out to a remote courtyard where I died in sickness and misery. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the 2nd year of our marriage. At supper, I smiled sweetly as I scooped the rice from my bowl into my stepdaughter, S, and stepson, S. "Good children, eat up. There is more if you need it. Besides vomiting, stomach pain, and infertility, it will even keep your corpse from rotting." Alistair, terrified, roared, "Stop what you're doing." After I awoke again, scenes from my past life flashed before my eyes like a revolving lantern. At 15, my father received a high promotion, and our family moved to the capital in high spirits. Before we had even found our footing, the house of Marquis Zhongshan came to propose a marriage, wanting me to become the second wife of the heir Alistair. Although the Marquise's status was slightly higher than ours, my mother had no desire to climb the social ladder. She only frowned and said, "Being a second wife is never easy. It can't compare to being a man's first, and only. Besides, while these great families look glamorous on the outside, their lives are not necessarily easy." Every word my mother spoke was a pearl of wisdom. Unfortunately, I was young and naive, ignorant of the wickedness in people's hearts. I listened to the slander of my aunt. "What does your sister-in-law know? The heir, Alistair, is not yet 25. He is young, powerful, and trusted by the emperor. If it weren't for the fact that he is a widower, our Sierra wouldn't even be considered." Yes, his first wife left 2 children, but once Sierra marries in, she can have her own. Men always favor their youngest. How is that a loss for us? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. To convince me, my aunt even secretly arranged for Alistair and me to have a chance encounter at a temple. I was a young girl full of romantic notions. The moment I saw the handsome and distinguished Alistair, my face flushed red. When I returned home, I shyly told my mother I wished to accept the proposal. After several failed attempts to dissuade me, she had no choice but to agree. Before my wedding, my mother earnestly told me, "Since you are to be a daughter-in-law of the Cui family, treat them well. If you trade a true heart for another, you will not lose out." My mother was truly a good person, and I was truly naive and foolish. Only later did I slowly learn that Alistair and his first wife, Julia, were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. When Julia died suddenly from a brief illness, Alistair nearly broke down. It was said that if not for his 2 children, he would have taken his own life to follow her. He remained in a deep depression for 2 full years. He only agreed to remarry because he needed someone to manage the household and care for his young children and aging parents. These secrets were only circulated among the highest echelons of society. No good family was willing to marry their daughter into such a situation, and the Qi family looked down on the lesser families who only sought wealth and status. As newcomers to the capital, of course, no one told us these things. On the contrary, the Qi family had investigated me thoroughly. They had heard that my father was a steady man. My brother was successful in the imperial examinations, and I had a reputation for being virtuous and beautiful. That was why they proposed. When my mother showed her disapproval, Alistair's older sister, Beatrice, secretly bribed my aunt. She had my aunt sing Alistair's praises to me. My aunt's family had followed us to the capital, supposedly to help care for my grandfather. But in reality, they were always jealous of my father and brother's success and brighter prospects. At the time, I thought a pie had fallen from the sky, that such a wonderful match had landed in my lap, and I desperately wanted to seize it. Little did I know, Alistair was poison wrapped in honey, a fatal concoction. And so, My heart full of tenderness, I married into the Marquise's household. I rose early and worked late, managing the house, serving my parents-in-law, and caring for the children. But Alistair remained lukewarm towards me, never showing any real concern. I told myself that his inability to forget his late wife was a sign of his deep feelings, making him a more valuable man. So, I humbled myself even further, working diligently. A life in a noble house consumed half a lifetime. By the time I had served my parents-in-law until their deaths and raised the 2 children, I found I had nothing left but a broken body and illness. On his deathbed, Alistair seemed to feel a flicker of remorse. His hand trembled as he held mine and confessed the truth. All along, he had been secretly adding mercury to my food, because mercury could prevent pregnancy. Only if I had no children of my own would I wholeheartedly care for his late wife's children. I am so sorry. I never thought you would be so selfless and virtuous, to treat us so well if there is a next life. I will not be so wary of you after he died. My stepson drove me into a small courtyard. With so much mercury accumulated in my body, I was already in agony. It wasn't long before I died, full of grief and resentment. As I lay dying, I hated myself for being so foolish, trade a true heart for another. My heart was human. It couldn't be exchanged for the heart of a beast. A person's death can be lighter than a feather, or heavier than a mountain. Dying like this, had I done right by my parents, my brother, my ancestors, and my country? I was filled with so much hatred. I wanted to drag Alistair to hell with me. When I opened my eyes again, I smelled the fragrance of the cassia tree. The tree had been planted by Alistair's late wife. It was his treasure. In the first few years after I married him, Alistair would often stare at that tree, his chin in his hand, as if seeing her in its branches. Truly despicable. I was dazed for a moment, realizing the scent was too real, the scene before me identical to when I first arrived. Was I alive again? I called for my personal maid Rose and asked softly. "What year is it?" Rose whispered. "My lady, don't you remember? It is the year of Yong Sing." I had returned to the 2nd year of my marriage. What did the heavens intend? Why let me start over? But at this point in time, if only I could have returned to before I was married. As I was lost in thought, Rose reminded me. "My lady, it is time for supper in the main hall." Yes, I was still a daughter-in-law of the Cui family. Alistair's parents were still alive. His sister Beatrice was already married, leaving just the 5 of them in the house. My harsh mother-in-law had subjected me to more than 6 months of training. She made me stand behind her during supper, serving the entire family from beginning to end. Alistair's son and daughter were only 5 and 6 at the time. During a single meal, they would constantly demand soup, water, rice, or other dishes every day. My back ached from exhaustion. Later, it was Alistair who spoke up for me, and my mother-in-law finally exempted me from this ritual, allowing me to eat in peace at the time. I was grateful to Alistair, thinking my mother was right. If I just treated him with kindness, he would eventually take pity on me. But in reality, Alistair had only pretended to help me so he could more easily poison my food. I took a deep breath and said to Rose, "Very well, I will get ready. Go to the small kitchen and boil a kettle of water. Remember, it must be scalding hot." Rose was confused. "My lady." I gave a faint smile. "Just go." Before I left, the water was ready. I took the kettle and poured the boiling water, bit by bit, onto the roots of the cassia tree. From today on, 3 kettles of boiling water every day. You can wallow in your sentimental grief, your endless devotion. I'll boil this tree to death. I was a moment late arriving at the main hall. My mother-in-law sneered. "The whole family is here, waiting for you. It seems the rules still need to be enforced." This old crone loved to lecture people with her authority as a mother-in-law. It was said that Alistair's late wife, Julia, had also suffered greatly at her hands. My dear mother-in-law deserved much of the credit for Julia's early demise. And the hateful Alistair didn't dare resent his own mother, so he took it all out on me. I smiled slightly and stood respectfully behind her. Mother, you jest. It is my duty to stand by your side and serve you. With that, I began to serve her rice and place food on her plate. Her expression changed. What are you doing? I said, you don't need to follow that rule anymore. You are always the one who likes to put on a show, I said gently. Mother, you misunderstand. To be able to serve you and learn from your example is my good fortune. Then, I served her a piece of her favorite dish, crab roe meatballs. Seeing I showed no resentment, she finally relented. At least you know your place. From now on, I would not eat with them. How else could I avoid the insidious mercury? I had figured it out over the years. The dishes were shared by everyone, making them difficult to poison. The mercury must have been added to my rice, and so I continued to serve my mother-in-law. Alistair remained expressionless the entire time, as if he didn't care at all. But I caught his gaze sweeping over my rice bowl several times. This confirmed my suspicions. Just then, the two children needed more rice. In a swift motion, I scooped the rice from my bowl into theirs, smiling sweetly. Eat this, the temperature is just right. Good children, eat up. The children were still young, and not yet overtly hostile towards me. They accepted the bowls with a smile. I sneered inwardly. Eat, go on, eat enough of it, and not only will you be unable to have children, you will suffer from vomiting, abdominal pain, and difficulty breathing. In the end, even your corpses won't rot. Alistair shot to his feet, terrified, and roared. Don't eat that. His voice was so loud it almost shattered my eardrums. Everyone at the table was startled. A nearby maid spilled the soup. His parents said disapprovingly, What are you doing, shouting like that? What has become of you? I took a step back in disbelief, feigning gradulous. Husband am I, as the second wife, not even qualified to serve the children rice. Alistair froze for a moment. That rice is cold. It is better to get a fresh bowl, of course. He wouldn't poison his own precious darlings. But before he could finish, I was already in tears. I cried out mournfully. So, in my husband's eyes, I am so untrustworthy. I am not even qualified to serve these two children. For 2 years, I have risen early and worked late, respected my elders, cared for the children, and been utterly devoted to you. Heaven is my witness. The sun and moon can attest. My devoted heart, so pitifully, utterly wasted. His parents. Alistair, what are you making a scene about? It is a small matter. I didn't wait for him to continue. I covered my face with a handkerchief, pretending to be unable to bear it, and ran out. Rose followed behind me, shouting, my lady, don't do anything rash. My lady, leaving the family staring at each other in confusion. Upon returning to my rooms, I naturally fell ill. And I didn't just fall ill, I made a great fuss, having people shout and clamor for a doctor. In the dead of night, I woke the entire household. Of course, the doctor I summoned was not the family's usual physician. That quack had been checking my pulse for my monthly wellness visits, but never once mentioned the mercury poisoning. He must have been instructed by the family. This time, I summoned the renowned doctor song from the city. After the old doctor arrived, he said my liver was deficient. My kidneys were congested, and my blood circulation was poor. He also subtly asked if I had eaten anything I shouldn't have. By this time, my body was already showing the effects of the mercury, with symptoms like chest tightness and shortness of breath, which I had mistaken for menstrual issues and exhaustion. In reality, I was poisoned. If this continued, I would repeat the same tragic fate. Next, I began to recuperate. I would return the chaotic mess of the Kui household to them, and secretly find the person who had administered the poison. It had to be one of the family's servants, perhaps someone in the kitchen or one of the serving staff. It would take some time to find out secretly. Only with a witness and physical evidence could I secure a divorce. Otherwise, if I went back to my family and complained that my mother-in-law was difficult, my sister-in-law was shrewish, and my husband was cold for reasons like those, even my loving mother would not agree to let me leave the QI family. Seeing me begin to live in seclusion and comfort, Rose grew worried. "We've spent 2 years getting the household in order," she said. "To just hand it over like this, wasn't all our hard work in vain?" The Cooey family had many old, loyal retainers who were all lazy, cunning, and slippery. When I first took over, they caused me no end of trouble. It took a great deal of effort and thought on my part to finally get them under control. But in truth, the Cooey family had only given me the appearance of authority. The money I could actually control was limited, and I often had to use my own dowry to make ends meet. I was busy and exhausted every day, with no time to rest, and I had tried to please everyone, hoping they would appreciate my efforts. How naive I was. I said to Rose, "Silly girl, we only need to look after our own private funds, our lands, and our shops. Let them worry about the rest." After all, that incident was about to happen soon. This time, without my interference, I was curious to see how the Quee family would handle it. Rose didn't understand why my personality had changed so drastically, but she was loyal and obediently did as I asked. What she didn't know was that in 1 month, Alistair's son, the young master of the house, Leo, would fall into the water. In my past life, I had poured my heart and soul into caring for Leo. I pitied him for losing his mother at such a young age, and always wanted to treat him well. I had noticed that the maids and nannies around Leo were not very attentive, but they were all servants left behind by Alistair's late wife, Julia. They looked down on me and only respected the Lynn family. They were afraid that if Leo developed feelings for me, he would forget the Lynn family, so they constantly spoke ill of me in his ear. "The mistress is your stepmother. All stepmothers in this world have black hearts. She is only nice to you on the surface. It is not like our genuine care. Once she has her own child, she'll see you as an obstacle." Even Julia's sister-in-law would visit the manor frequently, ostensibly to show concern for Leo, but in reality, she was afraid he would grow distant and they would lose the opportunity to benefit from him. So any time Leo showed a bit of fondness for me, they would inevitably stir up trouble, but I paid it no mind. Instead, I saw that the servants around Leo were incompetent and mentioned it to Alistair twice. With his petty, suspicious mind, Alistair only saw me as a threat and forbade me from interfering. He even said that the servants Julia had left behind had watched Leo grow up and were the best people for the job. I was worried, so I secretly had someone keep an eye on them. Sure enough, a month later, while Leo was playing by the pond, his nanny was dozing off under a tree. The other maids had run off somewhere to play, and the child fell into the water. If my people hadn't reported it in time, and if I hadn't jumped into the river to save him, who knows if he would have lived or died. Afterward, I caught a severe cold and was ill for a long time. But Julia's sister-in-law told Leo that things in this world are never so coincidental. How could I have arrived just as he fell in? It must have been a show I directed myself, just to win his favor. Leo believed her and hated me even more. What was most infuriating was Alistair. He knew the whole story, and he had even punished the negligent servants. But he refused to explain the truth to Leo. He just let the boy misunderstand me, and our relationship deteriorated further. Thinking back now, the venom in that man's heart is truly astounding. Now, I have washed my hands of it all. Let's see how well they manage on their own. And so, I gave Rose a few quiet instructions, and she went to carry them out. Half a month after I stepped down, the household fell into chaos. My mother-in-law, after 2 years of leisure, was once again in charge. But she was nowhere near as meticulous as I had been. After less than 10 days of work, she took to her bed. She complained of headaches, leg pain, and body aches. Everything hurt. She even sent her personal attendant to urge me to recover quickly and continue being her workhorse. Of course, I refused. Faking illness. Did she think she was the only one who could play that game? When my mother-in-law saw I had no intention of yielding, she came to my courtyard, planning to use her age and status to force me out of bed. I lay motionless, letting out a few coughs. My illness won't be getting better anytime soon. The doctor says I might have been poisoned. A matter this serious may have to be reported to the authorities. My mother-in-law's eyes widened, her lips quivered in shock. She knew about Alistair poisoning me with mercury. She had simply taken advantage of my youth and ignorance. Fearing I would make a scene, she didn't dare press the issue. However, with no one else to manage the house, she had no choice but to complain to Alistair, forcing her precious, unworldly son to deal with me. For the past 2 years, Alistair had used work as an excuse to sleep in his study. He would only come to my room on the 1st and 15th of the month. It was only after he gradually let his guard down that his visits became more frequent. That night, Alistair came to my room. Seeing it was an ordinary day, Rose couldn't hide her delight. "My lady, the master is coming to personally make amends with you." The silly girl thought my change in behavior was because Alistair had scolded me for giving my rice to the children that day at dinner. She thought I was still sulking. I thought for a moment and said, "Tell him I am unwell and cannot rise, lest I pass my illness to him." I hadn't yet found the servant who poisoned me, so I had to remain in the Kwai family for now. But that didn't mean I had to play nice with him. A look of disappointment crossed Rose's face. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Yes, my lady," but just as she turned to leave, we heard Alistair's voice from outside. "Why have so many leaves on this cassia tree turned yellow? How have you been caring for it?" "With 3 kettles of boiling water a day. Of course, meticulous care." The servants in the courtyard trembled, not daring to breathe. A moment later, we heard Alistair shout, "What? Am I not even allowed to visit my wife in her sick room?" Then he stormed in, his movements so forceful he nearly tore down the door curtain. A group of gentle maids was no match for a grown man. I waved my hand, and after a moment of hesitation, they all retreated. Alistair saw me sitting on the bed, my complexion rosy, calmly eating pastries. A surge of anger rose within him. "Sierra, how long are you going to keep this up?" I looked at him coldly, feeling a wave of nausea. How could I have ever been attracted to him? Was my heart truly clouded by lard? At this thought, I said flatly, "I have been ill. I've taken so much medicine and suffered so much. Yet I have never seen any concern from my husband. Now that we finally meet, all I receive are misunderstandings and accusations. Ain't it truly chills the heart?" Alistair had never been subjected to such sarcasm from me. He was momentarily stunned. I lazily lifted my eyelids and glanced at him. "I am ill and need to sleep early. If my husband has no other business, I won't keep you." With that, I picked up my teacup. Alistair let out a surprised, cold laugh. "Fine, fine. I offered you a way out, and you refused to take it. We'll see how you handle this later." He turned to leave. But before he stepped out, he said, "You married into the Kui family. You should know your place and share the family's burdens. Do you intend to be a hands-off mistress?" Then, in a commanding tone, he said, "Tomorrow, go to my mother and retrieve the household management tokens. And the matter of enrolling Leo in Master Zhuang's academy needs to be settled as soon as possible." All this time, I had been far too lenient with him. How dare he mention Master Zhuang's academy in the capital? Master Zhuang's academy was renowned. Everyone wanted to send their children there. But Master Zhuang was a man of integrity who disliked the spoiled children of noble families and preferred to accept students from scholarly backgrounds. In my past life, I had eagerly gone back to my family and begged my father to use his old-school ties with Master Zhuang to secure a place for Leo. I would never do such a foolish thing to please him again. "Alistair, let me be perfectly clear. I cannot manage the household, and do not come to me about the academy. You didn't dare let Leo eat the rice I served him. So naturally, an academy I recommend would also be no good. Furthermore, Sierra was brought into this family with a proper proposal and a grand wedding procession. I am not your family's servant. Do not order me around. Alistair spun around in shock. His gaze was fierce, as if trying to burn a hole through me. I sneered, unafraid, and pointed at his nose, saying word by word, Sierra, swear to the heavens that I will not waste another ounce of effort on the QE family, because you are all despicable people who treat kindness like dirt. Perhaps my aura was too strong, or perhaps Alistair had a guilty conscience. He left with a "you're being unreasonable" and stormed off. I felt a sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted from my chest. I should have understood long ago that Alistair had only ever brought me suffocation and pain. With such a wicked person, a sharp tongue was the only correct approach, and so we reached a stalemate. Alistair was angry and refused to back down, and I would no longer coax him cautiously as I had before. The only one who suffered from this was my mother-in-law. She had been desperate for me to resume my duties, but she found that even after playing her trump card, I was as unyielding as a stubborn mule now. She was at a loss after all. It was unheard of for a daughter-in-law who was bedridden to be expected to get up and work like an ox. A few days later, my mother-in-law finally found an ally. My sister-in-law, Beatrice, came for a visit. Beatrice was 3 years older than Alistair and had been married for several years. She had been spoiled growing up and, against her parents' wishes, had fallen for a poor scholar whom she insisted on marrying. The scholar was a failure at his studies and a spendthrift. Every time Beatrice returned home, she would leave with her arms full of goods, having leeched off the family. In my past life, Beatrice was very skilled at manipulating me. She would often say things like, "The previous sister-in-law was so virtuous, handling everything herself. You can't fall behind. Your brother will know whether you are trying or not. If you want to win his heart, you must put in the effort." When Julia was here, she treated me like her own sister. "Sister-in-law, that gold necklace of yours is so beautiful," because I was desperate to please them. Whenever Beatrice coveted my dowry or jewelry, I would hand it over without protest. But in reality, she was the one who had bribed my bitter, jealous aunt and ruined my life. When Rose came to tell me, "The young mistress has been speaking with the lady of the house for half an hour and is now heading towards our courtyard," I knew my mother-in-law had complained, and Beatrice was coming to teach me a lesson. I chuckled. She really thought highly of herself. I called Rose and Ivy over and gave them some instructions. Rose was surprised. Is this really okay?" Ivy patted her chest. "My lady, just you watch." When Beatrice arrived at my courtyard, I had her blocked at the gate, Rose said politely. "Our lady is very ill and fears passing her sickness to you, so she will not be seeing visitors today." Beatrice hadn't expected to be denied entry. She put her hands on her hips and sneered. "What airs my sister-in-law puts on? An elder has come to visit, and she refuses to see them. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed?" Just then, Ivy stepped out and said in a strong, clear voice, "Our lady said that since she is gravely ill and fears infecting the masters of the house, she ought to return to her own family to recover. But the lady of the house once told her that a married woman should prioritize her husband's family and not return home swayy, as it violates a woman's duty." She smiled at Beatrice. "Oh, my dear lady, I'm certainly not talking about you." This was a jab at Beatrice's frequent visits to sponge off her family. Ivy, with her sharp tongue, was truly the most formidable of my maids. With just a few words, she hit her mark. Beatrice trembled with rage. "You are just a servant. How dare you talk back to your mistress? Someone, slap her." As she spoke, her maids moved to strike. Ivy deftly retreated into my room, leaving Rose and a group of servants to smooth things over. "My lady, please don't be angry. This girl is just straightforward and ill-mannered. I will punish her severely when we get back." Beatrice knew this was just an excuse and continued to demand that Ivy be beaten. Ivy peeked her head out and said playfully, "Oh, don't trouble yourself, my lady. Although I am a servant, I am not a servant of the Cui family. You have no right to have me beaten. A dog catching mice, truly meddling in what doesn't concern you. You're just a married-out daughter. Aren't you overstepping your bounds? Every time you come to Our Lady's place, you're here to sponge. You don't even spare her dowry, jewelry, or antiques. The behavior of a down-and-out marquise's daughter is truly an eye-opener. Every word from Ivy was a sharp blow, striking right at Beatrice's heart. Rose feigned scolding her. You little wench, shut your mouth. Oh, my lady, you are a generous person. Please don't mind her. One played the good cop, the other the bad cop, and they infuriated Beatrice to the point of exploding. You've gone too far. Is this still the Cui household? When did it become your place, you insolent slaves, to lecture me? Sierra, come out here. I never showed my face. Just sat in my room sipping tea and listening to the comedy. Beatrice was furious, arguing with two maids in broad daylight. Whether she won or lost, she would be the one to lose face. I had decided to burn the bridges. What could she, a married-out daughter, do to me? She had no choice but to return to her mother, crying through several handkerchiefs. When Alistair came home, Beatrice ordered him to discipline me. But Alistair was in the middle of a cold war with me and wanted no part in it. He made a few excuses and slipped away. The mother and daughter were livid, cursing me through gritted teeth all night. Half a month passed in this way. Finally, the day of Leo's accident arrived. I had calculated the date and time, and I ordered everyone in my quarters to stay inside the courtyard to avoid being framed. Rose cut open a large, sweet watermelon from one of my estates. It had been chilled in the well for half a day, cool and refreshing. I thought about how in the past, whenever I had delicious food or interesting things from my estates, I would always send them to Alistair and his family first. I might as well have fed them to the dogs. Sometimes, I wondered. Before I died, Leo was in his 20s, a grown man. Did he genuinely think I treated him poorly, or did he understand everything, and was just selfish? As I was thinking, someone came rushing in to report that Leo had fallen into the pond and was barely breathing when they pulled him out. At a time like this, it would be inappropriate for me not to appear, so I took Rose and Ivy to Leo's courtyard. From a distance, I could see a crowd of people. The courtyard was bustling with servants coming and going. The room was also packed 3 layers deep. I sneered. With so many people crowded in, weren't they afraid he wouldn't be able to breathe? A bunch of fools. Entering the room, I heard the doctor say grimly, "He was in the water for too long. He is unconscious now, and even if he wakes up, he may become a simpleton." I sneered inwardly. It seemed that without my timely rescue, this was Leo's fate. I remembered asking him once why he hated me so much. He had said righteously, "You're not my real mother. How could you be genuinely good to me? You're just putting on a show to deceive us." Well, I'm not putting on a show anymore. You will have to bear the fate that has been arranged for you. My mother-in-law was stunned and began to wail. This can't be. This can't be. He is my only grandson." The veins on Alistair's forehead bulged. He roared. "Beat all of Leo's maids and nannies to death." The sound of servants begging for mercy filled the air outside. "Master, spare us. Master, for the sake of the late mistress, spare our worthless lives." The young master was harmed by someone else. It was not our fault. Oh, still trying to shift the blame to me. When my mother-in-law saw me enter, she lunged at me, hissing, "It was you. You harmed Leo. It was you." I calmly stepped back, his mother overwrought with grief and hallucinating. My mother-in-law was so enraged she almost spat blood. She shrieked, "Leo is so young. Who could he have offended? In this whole family he was only an eyesore to you. You venomous woman, give me back my grandson." After listening to her hysterical outburst, I said calmly, "I have been ill for over a month and have not left my room. My dowry servants have been with me the entire time and have not left the courtyard. After marrying into this household, I twice mentioned to my husband that the servants around Leo were not attentive enough, and that he should replace them with more reliable people. Once was on the 6th day of the 1st month last year, and once was on the 13th day of the 8th month this year. My husband's reply was, "The people Julia left are the most loyal and reliable. You need not concern yourself with this," I sneered. "I cannot accept such accusations. Mother, if I am to bear this slander for no reason, my family will not stand by and do nothing. Why don't we report this to the authorities? Let the officials investigate and find out the truth." My mother-in-law hadn't expected me to be so firm and was at a loss for words to cover her embarrassment. She pretended to be dizzy. "Oh, my head. Oh, I'm dying. I can't go on." A swarm of maids rushed to support her and lead her away. With the troublemaker gone, I finally saw Leo lying on the bed, his little face pale as snow. His sister, Celia, was terrified, held frozen in her nanny's arms. Alas, the pitiful often have their detestable aspects. I sighed and said to the doctor, "Please do your best." These days, just putting on a show was enough for me. As I was leaving the courtyard, Alistair followed me out. He stood alone at the gate, a departure from his usual self, and looked at me with a wistful expression. I raised an eyebrow. "Is there something you need?" Alistair sighed, looking lost. "Why did you ignore Leo? Why did you defy Mother? Why have you changed so much? Before you were not like this at all." Seeing the flicker of regret in his eyes, I understood. He was trying to use this as an opening to reconcile with me. Unfortunately for him, I wouldn't let him have his way. I retorted, "When I was gentle and virtuous, putting you first in everything, did you ever love or respect me?" When he knew I was honest and dutiful, Alistair only bullied, deceived, and manipulated me. Seeing his silent, confused expression, I said coolly, "No matter what I do, you are never satisfied. So, it is better to do nothing at all, as the ancients said. 1,000 words are not as good as silence. Doing less and saying less is the way to protect oneself." With that, I turned to leave. Alistair, angered, shouted after me, "Do you think you are so righteous? If not for your dereliction of duty as the mistress of the house, how could this have happened to Leo?" I was no stranger to such unreasonable behavior. Your family shouldn't be named Kui but Lai. It was clearly you who didn't trust me, who only listened to the words of those left behind by your late wife. What right do you have to blame me? If you had listened to me, Leo would not be in this state. Alistair, this was your own choice. The next day, unable to bear the shock, my mother-in-law truly fell ill. The Kui household was in disarray. I continued to feign illness, turning a blind eye. My father-in-law was the only one left to clean up the mess. After 3 days in a coma, Leo woke up. But as predicted, he was dazed and simple-minded, his wits gone. The Lin family came to visit. Julia's sister-in-law demanded an explanation. Poor Leo. A motherless child is like a blade of grass. No one to care for him. You must give the Lin family an account of what happened. My father-in-law retorted angrily, "An account? If not for the insolent servants you raised, would Leo be in this state?" The sister-in-law shot back. "This happened in the Kui household. What does it have to do with us? Your lordship is being utterly unreasonable." The two sides blamed each other, ending in a huge argument. As she was leaving, the sister-in-law wiped her tears and said, "Our Leo must have been an eyesore to someone. Heavens, my poor sister's bones are not yet cold, and her only son has become a simpleton. What an injustice." What did she mean by that? An eyesore to whom? It could only be me, stirring up trouble even as she left. But this matter had nothing to do with me from beginning to end. Her theatrics were useless. The Lin family came to cause a scene a few more times, but when they realized Leo was completely ruined and there was no more benefit to be gained from him, they stopped showing up. With that matter closed, Rose suddenly had a lead. It turned out a kitchen maid named Old Woman. Lee was highly suspicious. Rose had been watching her for a while, and found that she was often furtive and had many jars of spices. If anyone accidentally touched her seasonings, she would fly into a rage. I nodded. Good, keep investigating. There were only so many people. We would find the culprit after Leo became a simpleton. His physical health was fine. He would run around the manor all day, drooling and talking nonsense. My parents-in-law would look at him and turn away with undisguised disgust. Gradually, even Alistair was unwilling to mention his simple-minded son. They all understood that Leo's life was ruined. The only person who still cared about him was his sister, Celia. She was Alistair's only daughter, and in my past life, she was raised like a precious jewel. I hired famous tutors for her, cared for her meticulously, and carefully arranged her marriage. She wasn't as hostile towards me as Leo was, and I thought she had a place for me in her heart. But in my darkest hour, when my parents had passed away, and my brother was serving as an official far away, I had no one to turn to. I wrote to her for help. But Celia, unwilling to offend her brother, watched indifferently as I died. The Cui family, they were all the same. After Leo became simple-minded, Celia would often loiter outside my courtyard with a look of longing on her face. I pretended not to see her. I even warned Rose and the others. Do not get involved in anything happening in Lady Celia's courtyard. Not long after, Rose's investigation made progress. It was indeed old woman lie. Her methods were not sophisticated. It was just that I had never been on my guard. I had my people secretly take control of her children and grandchildren. As expected, the old woman confessed everything. It was Alistair's orders, and the mercury was provided by my mother-in-law. Every month, after Alistair spent the night in my room, old woman Lee would secretly add a small amount of mercury to my rice. I let out a long breath, so that was why I had been unable to conceive for so many years in my past life. I decisively returned to my family and presented the evidence and the witness to my father and brother. Only then did they learn what kind of life I had been living. My mother held me and sobbed. I've heard of mistreating a daughter-in-law, but never of such heartless beasts. It serves them right that their son became a simpleton. My father and brother thought more deeply and were even more furious. After a while, my father asked, "What are your thoughts on this matter?" He was asking if I was willing to return to the Cui family. After all, only half of what happened in my past life had occurred. They didn't yet know how tan my end had been. Now that Leo was a simpleton, he couldn't inherit the title. Alistair had no choice but to rely on me to bear him a legitimate heir. Women were generally considered virtuous and loyal, unwilling to serve a second husband. So, men, though fickle, were often forgiven. My father wasn't sure if I was willing to forgive Alistair. I said firmly. The Cui family are all heartless and untrustworthy. I would rather die than share a roof with those people. My father nodded grimly. Then we will divorce. It is not easy for a woman in this world, and even divorce brings criticism. We must be the ones to throw the dirty water on the Cui family. My brother gritted his teeth. Yes, we cannot let them off easy. With their assurance, I finally felt at ease and returned to the Cui household to pack my things. Most of my dowry servants knew what had happened and were efficiently packing my belongings onto the carriages. Alistair received the news and ran to stop me. "Sierra, what are you doing?" It had come to this. I could lay my cards on the table. "Alistair, you know what you've done. I am returning to my family. I am done with you." Alistair's face changed slightly. "Sierra, let's talk this through. Running back to your family is not the answer." I smiled faintly, still pretending. "The things you gave old woman Lee were quite valuable. Mercury is more expensive than gold. You are truly generous, my lord." My words exposed his scheme, and he looked utterly stunned. He panicked and grabbed my sleeve. "Sierra, it is not what you think. I just didn't want you to get pregnant for a few years. I wanted to wait until Leo was older. I would have let you have your own child eventually, so you would have someone to rely on in your old age." How ridiculous. When Alistair was 40, he was ambushed while on official business. I used my own blood as medicine and nursed him for 5 days and nights without sleep, snatching him back from the jaws of death. At that moment, he was truly moved. He secretly stopped the mercury in my food and stayed in my room every night, planning to reward me with a child. But it was not to be. My body, eroded by years of poison, was already ruined. I could no longer conceive. Later, Alistair, in a drunken stupor, slept with a maid. Not long after, the maid was found to be pregnant. Alistair said he could register the child under my name. I was even grateful to him for thinking of me, his childless wife. But even that humble wish was not granted. Leo, by then a grown man, could not tolerate another brother competing for the family inheritance. He had someone push the maid. 2 lives were lost. At that moment, I understood. My stepson's wings had grown. He would never allow me to have a child to share even a fraction of the family's wealth. They even intended to seize my entire dowry. My kindness had fed their greed. Alistair's indulgence had fostered their ambition. It wasn't until Alistair's deathbed confession about the mercury that my fury finally reached its peak. I sneered. Do you think I will stay here and continue this life with you? You poisoned me with mercury before. You could poison me with arsenic in the future. Your family is treacherous and venomous. I wish I had never met you between us. There is only one thing left: divorce. Alistair's face paled. He could no longer maintain his arrogant facade. Sierra, listen to me. I doubted you and neglected you before because we had not known each other long, and I did not dare to trust you completely. But after these 2 years, I know you are a virtuous and kind woman. I am willing to forget Julia for you, to open my heart. From now on, we can be a devoted husband and wife. Please, give me another chance. These were the words I had waited a lifetime for in my previous life, until I died. To hear them so soon now, it only proved how despicable human nature could be. I shook off his hand and said coldly, My father and brother will handle the divorce. Between you and me, there is nothing more to be said. But Sierra, I was wrong. I will admit my mistake and accept any punishment. From now on, I will be devoted to you. I will let you have children, and I will make your son the heir. I almost laughed out loud. Is your marquisate title inlaid with gold? It is just a minor title. If not for Alistair's favor with the emperor, the house of Marquis Zhongshan would have long since declined. In terms of real power, he was no match for my father. In terms of wealth, he was not as well off as my family. Even if you hadn't poisoned me, what would I be staying for? For your endless supply of mercury? For your difficult mother and greedy sister? Or for your pretense of deep affection? Alistair, a person like you, once seen through, is utterly worthless. I poured out all my anger. All these years, you pretended to be devoted to your late wife while treating me with indifference and criticism. If you truly loved Julia, you should have remained a widower for life. You should have taken good care of her children. But what did you do? You schemed to marry me, took advantage of me in every way, without a single thought for me. My suffering over the years, Alistair was not blind to it. You wanted to control me, to isolate me, so that I would have no choice but to desperately please you to survive in this family. Alistair's face was ashen. He stared at me blankly. No, Sierra, I said sharply. Alistair, I look down on you. Every moment I spent with you makes me sick to my stomach. My words had flayed him bare. In his moment of shock, I had already left with my people and belongings. After I left, my father and brother came to negotiate the divorce. Naturally, the Cui family refused to let me go. Even though the customs of this dynasty were relatively open, if they allowed me to divorce so easily, the Marquise's household would be utterly shamed. They promised my father and brother that they would treat me well in the future and that Alistair would turn over a new leaf. My father sneered. Poisoning my daughter for 2 years. Did you think the Huang family had no one to stand up for her? We are ashamed to be associated with a family capable of such acts, my brother said. After the divorce, our families will have no further relations. If you refuse, we will not hesitate to take this to court. They had come prepared, with all sorts of evidence. Old woman Lee's testimony, the remaining mercury, the evidence was irrefutable. A few clan elders from the Marquise's branch family came to mediate. Seeing the evidence, they were stunned. The century-old reputation of this house has been ruined by you, you unworthy descendant. Alistair's father slapped my mother-in-law hard. This was all your venomous idea. The Marquise household had lost all face. No matter how much they wanted to keep me, they could not risk a public trial. They had no choice but to sign the divorce papers. Before leaving, my father said bluntly, "Here is the list of my daughter's dowry. You will compensate for any losses over the years. Otherwise, don't blame us for spreading this news far and wide." My brother added, "Coveting my sister's dowry, and you call yourself a Marquise's household, too." The clan elders and my parents-in-law were flushed with shame. After the divorce was successful, my father let the news spread. Everyone in the capital soon knew that the Marquise's family had poisoned me to prevent me from having children. The stories of my mother-in-law's abuse and my sister-in-law's greed were also vividly told. Public opinion was overwhelmingly on my side. Many noblewomen whispered among themselves that no one should ever marry their daughter into the Kui family. Eventually, even the emperor heard of it. Such a huge scandal was proof of Alistair's poor character and lack of ability. Gradually, the emperor lost his favor for him. Life after the divorce was better than I had imagined. Everyone was sympathetic towards me. Even the most conservative families would reasonably say, this was indeed the Kui family's fault. Alistair remained quiet for a while, but it wasn't long before he started writing me letters. He said that after I left, he couldn't stop thinking about me. He would look at the orchids I had watered and be reminded of me. He even included a few sentimental poems. I was thoroughly disgusted and had someone ask him, "Is that cassia tree still alive?" Only then did Alistair learn that I had been watering the tree with hot water, boiling it to death. He stayed quiet for a few months, then chanced upon me at the temple again. This time, he was wearing the same moon-white robe he had worn when we first met. Who was he trying to nauseate? He looked like a complete buffoon. Seeing me turn to leave, Alistair chased after me, saying with deep emotion, "Sierra, what a coincidence. Don't go. I really want to talk to you. I was wrong before. You know, a while ago I had a very long dream. In the dream you were so good to me. We lived a life of love. And when I died, you were the one I couldn't bear to leave. Don't worry, I've thought it all through. It was I who corrupted my own children and harmed you. I am now reborn from the ashes, and I hope you can give me a chance to make it up to you. Leo is a simpleton anyway, and I won't let the Lin family visit anymore. This time, I will make you the most honored lady. Hey, don't go, Sierra. Sierra, please forgive me." My brother came to pick me up and, without ceremony, ordered the family guards. "This man is harassing a lady of an official's family. He is vulgar and suspicious. Beat him soundly." After that, there was finally peace. A few years later, I attended the birthday banquet of the Princess of Nan'an. As I was chatting with the other ladies, I felt a young woman staring at me. She was beautiful and gentle, but her face was unfamiliar. One of the ladies whispered to me, "That is the new wife of Marquis Zhongshan, Lady Helena." Alistair's father had passed away last year. They had gone to great lengths to have Alistair inherit the title. So this was Alistair's new wife. What did she want with me? After a while, I became engrossed in conversation and forgot about her. It wasn't until the banquet was ending and I went to change my clothes that I saw Helena waiting for me, hesitantly in the distance. I walked over and raised an eyebrow. "Is there something you need?" Helena seemed timid. She clenched her fists as if gathering her courage and then asked, "Miss Huang, I know I shouldn't be so forward, but I have a question that I must ask you." I nodded. Go ahead. Better to get it over with than have her follow me around strangely. Helena said in a low voice, My husband is so good, so devoted to you. How could you bear to divorce him? I said. Ha, she whispered. He has never forgotten you. He always murmurs your name. When he looks at me, it is as if he is seeing someone else. I secretly entered his study. It is filled with your portraits and love poems he wrote for you. She dabbed at her eyes. If a man were to cherish me like that, I would die without regret. I was speechless for a moment, then said to Helena, You haven't been in the capital for long, have you? Helena nodded. My father was promoted for his work on flood control. We've been here less than 6 months. All right, the same old story. Alistair really never tired of his tricks. He was just playing a game with himself, and quite an elaborate one at that. Seeing my disdainful expression, Helena's face tightened. Miss Huang, you cannot trample on a person's true feelings, I sneered. True feelings? Would someone with true feelings poison me? Lady Kui, you should do your research before you come to me. Alistair's affection, I assure you, is utterly worthless. Seeing Helena's confused face, I ignored her and turned to leave. Half a month later, she asked to meet me at a tea house. On the principle of saving a life, I went. After a few pleasantries, Helena became hesitant. I said frankly, My brother has been promoted to the governor of Fuzhou. Next month, I will be going with him. I had heard that the sea trade was open there. The economy was prosperous, and ships came and went constantly, even Persian merchants with blue eyes and blonde hair. The world is vast. I want to see it. Helena looked at me in surprise and whispered, Miss Huang, I truly envy you. Then, she took a deep breath. Are the rumors true? Did he really treat you like that? I said flatly. Yes, Alistair is not a normal person. He only loves what he cannot have. When his first wife, Julia, was alive, he did not cherish her. After she died, he lost his appetite and mourned her endlessly. Then he married me. He did not cherish me either. He bullied me, persecuted me, and nearly left me to die without a proper burial. After I left him, he put on this act of a deeply affectionate man who cannot forget his old love. Do you find him interesting? Helena understood. She suddenly covered her face and began to cry. If only I had known the truth before I agreed to the marriage. What should I do now? Woo-woo. There are always naive young girls who fall for his tricks. I sighed, leaned in close, and whispered a few things in her ear. Helena froze. Then a strange smile appeared on her face. Is that true? Thank you, thank you. Don't mention it. On the way back, Rose asked me, My lady, what did you say to Lady Helena? She seemed like a different person. I smiled. A way to escape, of course. The year Alistair was nearly assassinated. It was actually due to a private grudge. When he was young, he had mishandled a case and wrongly executed an innocent woman. He thought the matter was over and forgotten. But the woman's brother was a famous wandering swordsman. When the swordsman returned from his travels and discovered his sister's unjust death, he spent years searching for the truth. It wasn't until Alistair was 40 that he found his sister's killer. So, he found an opportunity and tried to assassinate him. That time, if not for me, Alistair would have died. For the past few years, I had secretly been searching for that swordsman. Now, I had already leaked Alistair's whereabouts to him. I estimated that the swordsman would be arriving in the capital soon. A person like Alistair deserved to die of old age. I believe Helena knows what to do. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. Alistair, this is the grand gift I have meticulously prepared for you.